Do you want to learn how you can easily use Amazon's S3 storage with your Amplify applications? In this video, that is exactly what I'm going to teach you how to do. Hi guys, my name is Sam with Complete Coding, where our aim is to make you into the best developer that you can be. In this video, we're going to be looking at AWS Amplify and how we can use the storage method to both create and then access data inside an S3 bucket. We're going to be using that to store the songs for our application and stream them live so that our users can listen to the songs inside our app. So we're going to jump into the code and see how we can set all of this up. Now that we're in the code, we can start in our app.jsx file, and in here we're going to add some extra logic, first to be able to toggle the song that is selected. The way we're going to do that is by creating a new function in our app called toggle song. And that is going to be an async function. And that function is going to take the index in the same way as we used down here in our add like function. So in this function, the first thing we need to do is check if this song is playing. To do this, we need to store that value. So that means we need to add a new state at the top. So const song playing with set song playing, and that is going to be use state, and it's going to be an empty string to start with. So now we have the song that is playing. In this toggle song, we can say if song playing equals IDX, then in here, we're going to stop this song from playing. So set song playing, and we're going to change that to be an empty string and return from this function. For now, if it isn't the song that is playing, we're going to do something very similar, but in a moment what we'll be doing is here adding some data and extra code to get the MP3 file that we want to play. So here we're going to be setting the song to IDX. So every time we click this function, if it is the index of 2, it is going to either turn it on if it is off or turn it off if it is on. To call this function, we want to go down to our renderer. So if we scroll down into here, we find this icon button that currently has a play arrow. What we can do is add an on click to this icon button, and this on click is just going to call the toggle song, passing in the index that we get from this mapping over all of the songs. So now that we have this, we can add a little bit of extra logic, because it would be strange for there to be a play icon when the song is already playing. So what we're going to do is wrap this in braces like this, and then change the logic in here. So if song playing equals IDX, then we want to show a pause icon. And that for us is going to be pause icon, like that. Else we want to show the play icon. So this pause icon we need to get from the material UI icons. So if we scroll up the top, we already have the icons installed. So we can import pause icon from at material UI icons / pause, and then go back down to our code here. So with this, every time that we hit this play or pause icon, it's going to switch between the two. If we save this, go into our terminal and run npm start, what this is going to do is it's going to start up our app, and we can test out the toggling to start with. So now the app has started, we can try pressing that, and as you can see, it's now turned to a pause icon, and it will toggle between them. If this one is currently playing and I click play on another one, it will switch this one to be playing. Now that we've got that working, we can set up the storage so that we have somewhere to store our MP3 files. We're then going to use Amplify to access the file, and then we're going to use something to play that back to ourselves. So if we go into our code and start by opening up a new terminal, and in this terminal we're going to run Amplify add storage, which is going to boot us into a CLI. The first question is, what kind of storage do we want? We can have a NoSQL database or content. Because this is audio, I'm going to go with content. The next question we asked is, what do we want to call that resource? So I'm going to call that song storage. We can provide a bucket name. So I'm going to call that something similar, song storage. Now here we can decide who can access the files from that bucket, either auth and guests or just auth users. So I'm going to go with auth users only. And in here we can select which of the abilities they have to use those and access those files. So I'm going to go with read. So, and also going to go with create and update, as we might want to in the future add the functionality for those users to add extra files onto this system. If we hit enter, do you now want the Lambda to trigger S3? So this means anytime that a new file is written or deleted or updated in that bucket, we can trigger a Lambda function. This is really useful if you're expecting customers to upload files and you want to process them somehow, but we don't want to, so we're going to hit no. So that's all been done. So what we can now do is do amplify push. What this is going to do is it's going to work out all of the parameters that are needed and the information that needs to be updated. So here you can see the auth, there is no change. The API that we've made previously, there is no change. But for storage, we're going to be creating a song storage, and that is going to be a create. We're going to say yes to continuing, and this is going to update those resources in AWS. This takes a little bit of time, so I'll get back to you when that is done. Now that that has finished deploying, we should have access to a storage variable. So what we can do is we can go up into our toggle song function, and we can start to edit this a little bit. So the first thing that we need is we need to know the file name of the song that wants to be played. So after this. So if the song is already playing, we still want to stop it in exactly the same way. But if it is not playing at the moment, we want to start playing it. To do that, we need the song file path. So const song file path. And we can get this from the songs array, get it by the, and we're going to be getting the file path like that. So now that we have the file path, what we need to do is we need to access it from the storage. Because this is an async request, we're going to wrap all of this in a try catch. So inside our try, the first thing we actually need to do is get the file access URL. So the way that Amplify Storage works is you can call storage.get with a file path, and then you'll get back the URL that you can use to access that file. So in our case, we're going to do const file access URL, and that equals await storage dot get, and we're going to pass up the song file path, and we're also going to pass up an object which has a property of expires and 60. And this is an optional parameter, which are the expiry on that URL. So after 60 seconds, if someone tries to get the file using that URL again, they won't be able to access it. This just means that if one of your users copies that URL and sends it to someone else, they won't be able to access it if it's been more than 60 seconds. This is just a nice security measure so that your files don't get spread and sent to people that shouldn't have access to them. So this storage parameter, we actually need to import. So if we go up to our Amplify settings, after our GraphQL operation, we can add in our storage. And this is a method from Amplify. Now we go back to our code here, and we have accessed our file. So now that we've accessed it, we're going to start by just console logging it out. So console log access URL file access URL. This just makes it a little bit easier for us to debug if we need to. Now that we have that, we can move this set song playing and the return into this try. But there is one more thing we need to do before returning from this function. Now that we have the file access URL, we need to store that somewhere. So we're going to go up to the top and add one final set of state to our app. So const array of audio URL and set audio URL equals use state, and it's going to start as an empty string, and this is where we're going to store our URL for playing the song. So if we copy this set audio URL and go into our try, so we're going to now go in here and set the audio URL to be the file access URL. That just means that we then have access to it everywhere else in this code. If there is an error, on the other hand, in this process, we need to handle that properly. To start with, we're going to put a console.error, and that is going to have a message of error accessing the file from S3. And we're also going to pass in the error itself. As well as that, we want to set the audio URL to be an empty string and set the song playing to be empty as well, which will just clear out both of these so that it appears that none of them are playing, and that is what we want to show in this error state. So now that we have this set up, if we head over to our browser, we can see that we have the two songs. If I hit play on one of them and open up our console, we can see that the access URL is logged out. What we now need to do is actually populate our database with relevant records for both of these songs and store them in the S3 bucket that has been created. So if we go into our AWS console and search for S3, in here we should see, once it's finished loading, that we have a new bucket. So if I search for song, we have song storage, a date, and then the fact that we've built it as a dev bucket. If we go into here, we can start uploading our songs. We want to be uploading these songs so that they are accessible to everybody that is logged in. So the way that we do that is create a new folder and call it public. If we go into that folder, we can now upload our songs. I'm going to add two songs that I have stored on this computer and hit next. You don't want to access public read because we're going to be accessing through signed URLs, and you can hit next through all of this until we upload them. You can use whatever songs you want, but these are just two songs I've found online that are free to use. So now that we have these, they're called Epic and Tomorrow, we need to update our Dynamo table. So if we click on Services and search for DynamoDB, we can go into our tables and find our song table from the last video. In here, if we go into Items and pick the top item, we have one of the songs. In here, I'm actually going to change the title to Tomorrow, and then I'm going to add a file path of tomorrow.mp3 and save this. I'm also going to go into the other row in this database, change the file name here to Epic Song, if I can type that correctly, and in the file path change it to epic.mp3 and save that as well. So now we have the file path for both of the songs, and we've uploaded those to S3. If we go into our React app, and if we refresh the page, this is going to get down our new data. So as you can see in our song list, we now have the correct URL, tomorrow.mp3. If I hit play on this, we'll have a URL logged out. I'm actually going to copy that URL, paste it into a new tab, and it is going to start playing that song. I've got my headphones plugged in, which is why you guys can't hear it, but that is the song playing straight from S3. That is great, but we want to be able to play the song in this app. So what we're going to do is jump back into the code, and in there we're going to add a new component so that we can play the song directly from our app. So as we've set the song that is playing and we've set the audio URL, we have access to them inside our code here. What we're going to do is we're going to add something at the bottom of each of the song cards to actually play the song. So if we go down to after the song card, we're going to add some dynamic content here. So before we toggled the pause or play icon depending on whether the song was playing. So now we're going to do the same, but we're going to use a audio player. So if song playing equals IDX, then in here I'm going to use normal braces because we're going to be doing a couple of lines of JSX here. We're going to create a new div, and in that div we are going to use the React player like that. Now this we need to first install. So what we need to do is go back into our terminal and install the React player using npm install -- save React player. Whilst this is installing, we can add some extra configuration to this code to make the React player work in the way that we want it to work. So the first thing that we can add is we can add a URL, which is the URL that it is going to be accessing our file from. In our case, that is going to be the audio URL. As well as that, we want the user to be able to play and pause and scrub through the song. So we can say that controls are true. By default, we want it to start playing as soon as it loads. So playing is set to true. We want to add a little bit of style on this. So the height is going to be a string of 50 pixels. And the last thing is there is an on pause function. And this is a function that is passed back to us. So we're going to be passing in a callback function. So when someone clicks pause on the React player, we want to toggle the song in the same way that we've been toggling the song with our own play pause. So that is all we need to do there. So that is if the song playing does equal the index. But if it doesn't, we have to put, say, colon, and then have null. So if we now save this and head back over to our browser, we can see that we need to import the React player. So if we copy the React player, scroll up to our code, and in here we can import the React player from React player, just like that. So if we save that, we can head back over to our browser, and this will reload. And now we have our app where we can actually play our songs. So if I hit play on here, our song will start playing automatically in our browser. This is really cool, but it looks a bit awkward. So I'm going to add a little bit of styling to make this work in a nicer way. As you can see, hitting the pause button on there does the same as hitting the pause button here, which is kind of neat as well. So if we scroll down to our React player at the bottom of our code, we have this div wrapping it. We can give this div a class name, and that class name can be our audio player. And if I copy that I can head into our app.css, head to the bottom of here, add a new style for the class of our audio player, and that can simply be display, and the display we want is flex, and we want to justify the content to the center. If I save both of these files and we head back into our code, once this browser is reloaded, if we hit play now, it's just sat in the middle, which looks a little bit nicer. So I have just unplugged my headphones. So now if I click on one of these songs, I hope you can hear that the song is playing. I can also pause the song from here and play the other song. In here, I can change the volume of the song if I want. I can mute it, and that is a really cool feature in our app. In this video, we have learned how we can use our Amplify application to access data stored in an S3 bucket. We have created the S3 bucket using the Amplify CLI and then accessed it through the AWS SDK inside our code. This has allowed us to add the ability for our users to listen to the songs directly in our app. The stuff you've learned in this video can be used for a load of different features. You could have the ability to browse through a list of images. You could have a system where you could watch videos inside your app, or you could have a document upload system so that your staff get the documents they need from the customers without having to deal with email or anything like that. If you've learned something new in this video, it'd really help out the channel if you give it a like, as it helps the YouTube algorithm suggest this video to more developers like yourselves. And if you haven't done already, make sure to subscribe down here, as in the next video on Amplify, we'll be looking at how we can upload new files into our storage system. Thank you, and I'll see you in that video.